We have to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo potentially be trading to the Miami Heat on this episode of the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff because an NBA insider hinted at Giannis being dealt to Miami over the weekend. It might be a stretch, but I think it's at least worth talking about in some capacity. It all started with this. Yes, a StatMuse account that goes by BronMuse tweeted out this tweet. It's his first player not named LeBron James that comes to mind, but what was accompanied with this tweet was a picture of the Miami Heat logo. So obviously Bron played with Miami, and he was just seeing who's the first player not named LeBron that you think about when it comes to the Miami Heat. Well, Scoop B. Robinson, an NBA insider who has had a lot of good information in the past. I'm not going to say he's the most consistent, but he's got scoops in the past. He quote tweeted it with a picture of Giannis in a Heat jersey. How am I not supposed to see that from someone who is at least notably known on NBA Twitter and not think that this is something that could ultimately come to fruition? I don't know. Call me an optimist, but I got to talk about it in some capacity. There's no doubt about that. And we talk about Miami Heat rumors every single day, whether it's trade rumors, whether it's draft rumors, free agency, news, and everything in between. Hit that sub button. Let's get to 22,600 today, but join the channel for daily content. I'll say this. Do I think it's going to happen? I'll talk about it a little bit more. I lean no. But it's hard to wonder, hard not to wonder, I should say, what this means. Why would someone who has sources tweet a picture of Giannis in a Heat jersey with that? Unless he just felt like a big-time troll over the weekend, which I don't think you have the leeway to do that when you're in Scoop's shoes of trying to get your brand and name more out there as a top NBA reporter. There just simply has to be something that he's heard or been told when it comes to Giannis and the Miami Heat. Now, with that being said, I do want to make it abundantly clear on my position when it comes to a Giannis Heat trade. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I find it extremely, extremely unlikely that the Heat are able to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there's a couple reasons why. I'll start with number one. I actually think he stays with Milwaukee. I said earlier during the offseason, maybe at the tail end of the regular season, if they go out sad again, which the Bucks did, losing in the first round of the NBA playoffs for a third straight year, 2 straight to Indiana, obviously Miami 3 playoffs ago. Damian Lillard's injury maybe helped push this thought process as well, but there's just no future with the Bucks because they don't have any control of their own draft picks. Kyle Kuzma's terrible, and Dame's out for practically all next year. So next year's a wash for Milwaukee. Does Giannis want to stay there? But Jake Fisher, another person who is questionable at times, tweeted about how most people among league circles and executives believe Giannis ultimately stays. And as much as I think it makes sense to winning the Antetokounmpo requested trade, he just feels like a guy that wants to stay in Milwaukee and be a one-team dude for his entire career. So at the early part of the offseason, I thought it was 60-40. Right now, I think it's more like 30-70 he actually requests a trade. I think it's 70% he stays in Milwaukee. That's just my personal thoughts. I obviously don't have any inside sources, but what say you? Does Giannis get traded this offseason? Type Y for yes, type N for no. At this point in the process, I would be stunned if he requested a trade, so I'd be typing my N's. Now, even if that tweet pops up from Shams Charania that Giannis Antetokounmpo has officially requested a trade from the Milwaukee Bucks, I am still finding hard times to find optimism about a potential trade where he ends up being a member of the Miami Heat. The Heat are a destination, but these are the 5 most likely outcomes, in my opinion. And if you look at the next team odds for Giannis on DraftKings, on FanDuel, on other betting sites, the Heat aren't even in the top 6 or 7. These are usually the top 5. I didn't put them in any respective order here, but Houston, San Antonio, probably at the top of the list. If the Oklahoma City Thunder don't come back and win the NBA Finals, then they could look to switch it up and add Giannis alongside SGA. There's been a lot of buzz about the New York Knicks potentially trying to hire Jason Kidd and then trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but there has also been growing talks around the league that the Raptors are going to go big game hunting. And they have a pretty good package if they wanted to trade for Antetokounmpo, including RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, as well as a lot of draft capital. When you look at those 5 teams that we just talked about, I think the Heat could really only top one of them in a respective offer. The team that I think they could top is actually the New York Knicks. Why do I ask that? Well, the Knicks don't really have any picks that they can trade. Now, I guess they could do a 3-team deal where they trade one of Cat, OG, Mikal Bridges to a 3rd team, get picks from that, and then reroute that to Milwaukee, but that doesn't really solve the issue of matching salaries with Milwaukee either, because you got to match that 54, 55 mil that Giannis is making, and it would have to be either Cat, which it sounds like in the buzz around the league, they wouldn't want to do that. And then there's also talks about, well, combining OG and Mikal. Well, then they would both have to go to Milwaukee. And why would the Bucks want 2 third options at best and limited draft capital for Giannis? Because they're just gone. Like, they're going to prioritize a young asset or a lot of draft capital. And I think the Heat actually have a relatively good blend of that. Now, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Toronto just happen to have more than Miami. But I don't think the Heat's package would be bad whatsoever. Because in this hypothetical where the Heat acquire Giannis, you are keeping Bam Adebayo. Because Bam and Giannis have a relatively good relationship. They share an agent. So you would imagine that that would be your 4-5 combination. And you'd fill out the roster around those 2. So you're trading Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Kel'el Ware, Nikola Jovic, 2 first-round picks, and 3 first-round pick swaps. Maybe you trade 2 futures in 2030, 2032. You keep your 20th overall pick this year, and you acquire Giannis and Pat Connaughton. I think that is what would have to be offered to try to get in the ring with some of those other teams that we just talked about it. But at this point, what is the point of making that trade? And I think Giannis, he's the 3rd best player in the NBA, in my opinion, behind Jokic and SGA. But it is a duo of him and Bam with no lead guard on the roster at that point, getting anything done in the Eastern Conference? I doubt it. So is it even the best decision for the Miami Heat to go out and acquire Giannis if it's costing you one of Bam or Giannis? Because if you have Bam, Giannis, and Hero, well, now you have a team that could compete in the East. But I also don't think there is a package you can make without one of Hero or Bam that the Milwaukee Bucks would really be interested in. It's kind of how I feel at this point. We got more to discuss here, but I do got to show some love to our sponsor. That is PrizePicks, the daily fantasy sports platform I play every single day. And with the final series in basketball here, don't miss out on the last chance to get in on the action with the hardwood. You can pick more or less on just a few player stat projections like points, rebounds, assists, and you can combine different projections to have a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. You can play daily. You can play season long if you want to get in on football action. You could also do series long. Now, a little too late for this for y'all, but I want to provide an update on my entry for the series. I got less than Tyrese Halliburton points per game, more than SGA points per game, and less than Andrew Nembhard 1.23 pointers made per game. Now, I am looking good just after the first game. Halliburton was less than 18. SGA was more than 33. So good on those front. Nembhard made a couple threes late in that game, so have to do some work there. Just one little update on my 3-player entry, but get started and get in on the action with games 2 and 3 coming up here. And join me. And you get $50 instantly when you download the app today and use code CLNS. You get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I'll be honest here, folks, and this is kind of a 180 for me, but I was sitting home this weekend really thinking about it because I do think about the Heat way too much. And I will say, the Heat have obviously been really rumored and linked to Kevin Durant. And now we talk about this Giannis stuff. I don't know if the Heat get either of them. I mean, Durant sounds like he might be a Spur or a Timberwolf. And just say he stays in the West, even though I think he should want to come to an East if he wants to win. But I don't know if he cares about that. I think he just cares about getting his money, cares about hooping and have a good life, which is completely fine. But at this point for Miami, If you don't get one of those two, which is the only two players on the trade market right now that could really be added to Hero and Bam and make a difference, in my opinion, why not just preserve flexibility for this upcoming season and just see what happens at the trade deadline, where you can make a deal like Toronto did maybe and get a star at the trade deadline? Not that Brandon Ingram's a star, but you kind of get the point of like maybe a guy comes loose, and even though you are not going to compete for a title, you try to get him there, acclimate him, and then go into the offseason with them. Or you just see what happens and have a lot of flexibility to make a big trade in 2026 when you have an unprotected first-round pick in your own favor and a loaded draft class where maybe you're bad and you get there. Like, why not see what happens? Now, I will say this. There is this little birdie talking on Twitter named Jake Weinbach saying that the Heat could be one team that would check in on Lauri Markkanen, and if he's available. We talked about the idea of trading for Markkanen on a video a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Go back on the channel and watch if you'd like, in a blockbuster trade. They had interest in Lauri last year before he signed the long-term extension. There's buzz on Jazz Twitter. I don't know how I got there, but I am there that, well, they might look to shake up the roster, whether it's Walker Kessler or Lauri Markkanen ahead of them having the 5th overall pick and go full youth. Like, I'm intrigued with Lauri. I'm not sold by any stretch of the imagination on him being a difference maker with the Heat. Now, you wouldn't have to give up Hero or Bam, obviously. Hell, I wouldn't even give up Khalil Ware for Lauri Markkanen. And I would just run a big lineup of Lauri, Bam, and Ware as your 3-4-5, because Bam could guard the 3, Markkanen could guard the 4, and Ware would be the 5, and Markkanen's floor spacing ability would make it work offensively, with Bam and Ware also improving as three-point shooters. Now, there's no doubt about it, Lauri Markkanen didn't have a good season this past year. He was an all-star in 23-24. Did the all-star game being in Utah have anything to do with it? Maybe. But he did have a really good year efficiency-wise, and it was well-deserved. And I don't know if that was just an outlier season for Lauri, because you see how much he struggled this past year. And you also see one number that's very intriguing on his last 2 seasons in Utah as well. He's never played over 60 games. That's a little bit concerning, because we know Miami is a team that needs their stars to play every game. The point is that the Heat have been a bottom 5 offensive team in the NBA over the last 5 years. So adding a wing/big that can be a floor spacer, a creator as well, is intriguing, at least in some capacity. So let me know your thoughts. Could Lauri Markkanen be a good backup plan for Kevin Durant or Giannis, assuming Miami strikes out on both? Type T if you would trade for Lauri, type P if you would pass. Final word on today's show. Like I mentioned just a second ago, I'm honestly not stressing at this point, which, call it an enlightenment, call it something else. I don't know. But I just have a feeling this will not be an offseason where the Heat acquire a star. I don't think they get KD or Giannis. So I am kind of already coming to the conclusion and finding peace with the idea of just riding out. I know people are going to hate this phrase, but running it back with this mid-team, give the young core a final chance to prove themselves. Say, Hero, Bam, this is your final year to prove that you guys could be the 1, the 2 on a contending team in the East. Say, hey, Nikola Jovic, we really like what you can bring to the table at your size, your age, your playmaking ability. But if you can't stay healthy and you can't take another step forward in year 4, this is your final chance. Same thing with Jaime Jaquez Jr., an older prospect entering year 3. If he doesn't have a bounce-back third season after a really down sophomore year, then you cut bait with him. Like, I don't actually hate the idea of this, where you just give everybody, this is your last chance. And then after 25-26, you will know where you stand with Jovic, you will know where you stand with Jaime, and you will have more clarity on Bam as he enters his 29-30 season the following year, and you'll have more clarity on Tyler Hero before you give him a contract extension potentially next offseason, because I'm not doing it this offseason in October. 2025-26, I've come to the conclusion right now. It's either going to be a ton of fun, the Heat get a star, their young core breaks out, or it is going to be absolutely miserable, and we will be talking about NBA draft prospects before the trade deadline in February. Those are the only 2 outcomes we have. We're either going to be a top 5 team in the East, or we're going to be a bottom 5 team in the East. So get prepared, and we'll be here for every step of the way here at the Heat Report, which is why you subscribe. Join the channel for daily content because it's going to be a lot of fun this offseason.